In the world of monsters, the quietest one is always the most dangerous, and he never made a sound. In the scorched borderlands of Tamaulipas, Mexico, where the Rio Grande separates two worlds and neither belongs to God, Gilberto García Mena was born in 1964. The exact date remains a mystery, like everything about him. His childhood was spent in Matamoros, a city where the Mexican flag flew, but Mexican law never reached, where the only authority came from men with guns and the only justice came from bullets. Unlike the flashy narcos who wore gold chains and drove Ferraris, García Mena learned early that invisibility was the ultimate weapon. While other boys dreamed of corridos sung in their honor, young Gilberto studied shadows. He watched how the loud ones died first, how the boastful ones ended up in ditches, how the kingpins who loved cameras ended up in cages. He learned the most important lesson of the underworld. Power whispered is more dangerous than power shouted. His father was a small-time smuggler, moving pot and stolen goods across the river. Nothing glamorous, nothing legendary, just survival capitalism in a place where the economy ran on contraband. But the boy watched, absorbed, calculated. He saw how the Americans wanted their stuff, how the Mexicans provided it, and how the border was nothing but an imaginary line that money could erase. At 15, he was already running his own loads. At 17, he'd killed his first man, a rival who tried to steal his shipment. No hesitation, no remorse, just business. By 20, Gilberto García Mena had learned what would become his signature. Silence is armor, and patience is a weapon. The 1980s were the golden age of Mexican trafficking. While the world watched Pablo Escobar in Colombia and the Guadalajara cartel in western Mexico, the Gulf Cartel quietly became the most powerful organization on the eastern corridor. Based in Matamoros, it controlled the entire border from Tamaulipas to the Gulf of Mexico, an empire built on powder, dope, pot, and crystal flowing north, and guns and cash flowing south. Juan Garcia Abrego was the king, a man who turned the Gulf Cartel into a billion-dollar machine. And Gilberto García Mena, he was the mechanic who kept it running. No spotlight, no interviews, no corridos, just results. García Mena started as a plaza boss, a mid-level operator who controlled a specific crossing point. But he wasn't just moving stuff, he was perfecting the system. He studied US Border Patrol schedules like a scientist, documented which agents could be bought, which needed to be threatened, and which needed to disappear. He didn't waste bullets on spectacle. Every murder had a purpose, every bribe had a return, every decision was calculated. While Abrego played politics and lived like a celebrity, García Mena remained a phantom. He built tunnels under the border, purchased legitimate businesses as fronts, and created a network of safe houses that stretched from Matamoros to Houston to New York. The stuff moved like water through a pipeline, constant, invisible, unstoppable. But García Mena noticed something others missed. The flashy ones always fell first. Abrego loved the attention, loved being on Forbes's billionaire list, loved being called the Czar of the Gulf. And in 1996, the Americans caught him. The king fell, and chaos erupted. Gilberto García Mena did what he always did. He watched, waited, and prepared. The late 1990s brought a new terror to Mexico: Los Zetas. They were ex-Mexican Special Forces soldiers recruited by the Gulf Cartel to be enforcers. Trained by the Americans to fight insurgents, they instead became the most brutal killing machine Mexico had ever seen. They didn't just kill, they made examples. Decapitations, dismemberments, mass graves, torture videos, they turned violence into theater. The new Gulf Cartel boss, Osiel Cardenas Guillen, commanded Los Zetas like his personal death squad. And García Mena? He worked with them, but never became one of them. He understood their purpose. Fear is a currency. But he also understood their flaw. Monsters always turn on their masters. While Cardenas built an empire of blood, García Mena built an empire of logistics. He expanded routes into South Texas, corrupted entire police departments, and created a distribution network so efficient that powder moved from Colombia to Chicago in 72 hours. He didn't need to be famous. He needed to be functional. And he was the best. His method was simple. Make yourself indispensable, but never irreplaceable. He taught others how to run plazas, how to move product, how to launder money, but never taught them everything. He kept the most important connections, the deepest tunnels, the safest routes locked inside his mind. You could kill him, but you couldn't replace him. That's why he survived. In 2003, Cardenas was arrested. The Gulf Cartel fractured, Los Zetas broke away and became independent, and the war began. A war that would turn northeastern Mexico into a graveyard. Cities like Reynosa, Nuevo Laredo, and Matamoros became battlefields. Hundreds died, then thousands. Bodies hung from bridges, heads rolled in the streets, and entire families vanished overnight. But through it all, Garcia Mena kept moving product. Wars are bad for business, so he did what survivors do. He adapted. He made deals with both sides, paid whoever controlled the plaza that week, and never took sides publicly. To the Gulf Cartel, he was loyal. To Los Zetas, he was neutral. To the Americans, he was invisible. And invisible men don't die. By 2010, Gilberto García Mena had become one of the most powerful traffickers in Mexico. Not through violence, but through efficiency. While other cartels fought wars, he fought economics. He understood what the flashy ones never learned. Trafficking isn't about killing, it's about supply chains. He controlled multiple border crossings, owned dozens of legitimate businesses, and had politicians, police chiefs, and judges on payroll across 3 states. His operation moved tons of powder, dope, crystal, and pot every month, generating hundreds of millions of dollars. But unlike the kingpins who built mansions and bought private zoos, Garcia Mena lived modestly. A nice house, yes. Luxury cars, sure, but nothing that screamed, "Arrest me." His reputation was built on 2 things: reliability and ruthlessness. If you worked for him and stayed loyal, you got paid well, your family was protected, and you lived. He treated his people like employees, not slaves. He understood that loyalty isn't bought with fear alone. It's bought with respect and money. His plaza bosses weren't terrorized into service. They were invested in his success because it meant their success. But if you betrayed him, the punishment was absolute. Not dramatic, no public torture, no viral videos, just disappearance. You, your family, your friends, erased. Quietly, efficiently, completely. The message was clear: betray me, and you never existed. His killing style reflected his personality. Minimal, surgical, effective. He didn't need to hang bodies from bridges to make a point. A single bullet in the back of the head, a shallow grave in the desert, and silence. The fear came not from spectacle, but from certainty. Everyone knew, cross Garcia Mena, and you're already dead. He also understood corruption better than anyone. He didn't just bribe cops, he studied them. He knew their families, their debts, their mistresses, their ambitions. He didn't offer them bags of cash and threats. He offered them solutions. A cop with a sick kid? Garcia Mena paid the hospital bill. A mayor with gambling debts? Garcia Mena cleared them. And then when he needed something, the answer was always yes. Because the best chains are the ones you don't feel until you try to move. While El Chapo made headlines and Los Zetas carved their legend in blood, Garcia Mena operated in the void between fame and obscurity. He never gave interviews, never appeared in photos, never had corridos written about him. To the media, he was a footnote. To law enforcement, he was a name on a list. But to those in the game, he was something far more dangerous. The man who never stopped working. His distribution network stretched across the United States. Houston, Dallas, Atlanta, Chicago, New York. Every major city had Garcia Mena's product moving through it. He didn't use flashy smuggling methods. He used the boring ones that worked. Trucks with hidden compartments, legitimate shipments with concealed loads, corrupt customs agents, tunnels that took years to build. Slow, steady, unstoppable. He pioneered the use of legitimate businesses as fronts. Trucking companies, import-export firms, construction businesses, even a chain of grocery stores. All of them washing millions in cartel money while moving tons of stuff across the border. The beauty of it was simple. When everything looks legal, nothing looks suspicious. Money laundering became an art form under his control. Cash from the US was smuggled back to Mexico in bulk, then funneled through a maze of shell companies, real estate purchases, and legitimate investments. By the time it reached his accounts, it was clean. He owned ranches, hotels, shopping centers, and nightclubs, all profitable, all legal on paper, all funded by powder and dope. But the real genius of Garcia Mena was his understanding of something others missed. The American demand will never stop. Politicians could declare wars on stuff, build walls, deploy agents, pass laws, but as long as Americans wanted to get high, someone would supply them. And he intended to be that someone. He diversified. Powder from Colombia, dope from the poppy fields of Guerrero, crystal cooked in super labs in Sinaloa, pot grown in the mountains of Michoacan. He didn't produce it all himself, he coordinated. He was the middleman, the logistics expert, the broker who connected producers to distributors. And middlewomen don't get headlines, but they get rich. By 2015, US authorities estimated his organization moved over $1 billion in product annually. But Garcia Mena himself? Officially, he was just a businessman. Officially, he'd never been convicted of anything major. Officially, he didn't exist. And that was exactly how he liked it. The 2010s were the bloodiest decade in modern Mexican history. Over 150,000 people were murdered in cartel violence. Entire towns were abandoned. Mass graves were discovered monthly. And through it all, the Gulf Cartel and Los Zetas tore each other apart, city by city, body by body. Garcia Mena navigated this chaos like a shark in bloody water. Dangerous, efficient, always moving. He made temporary alliances, betrayed when necessary, and never let ideology get in the way of business. When the Gulf Cartel split into factions, he worked with whichever faction controlled his routes. When Los Zetas needed to move product through his territory, he took his cut. When the Sinaloa cartel wanted access to his border crossings, he negotiated. He wasn't loyal to a cartel, he was loyal to money. But this strategy had risks. In the cartel world, neutrality is often seen as betrayal. In 2013, rumors spread that Garcia Mena was working with both sides of the Gulf Zetas war. Los Zetas marked him for death. A hit squad was sent to Matamoros. 3 of his lieutenants were killed in a single night, their bodies left with messages. "Tell Garcia Mena he's next." His response was calculated and brutal. Within a week, 7 Zetas operatives disappeared. No messages, no warnings, just gone. Then a video appeared online, grainy, dark, almost unwatchable. 7 men on their knees, a voice off camera, calm and cold. "You wanted to send a message, here's mine." Gunshots, silence. The video ended. It was never confirmed if Garcia Mena ordered it, but everyone knew. The attacks stopped. The message was received. "You can try to kill me, but I will erase you." Yet despite his power, Garcia Mena understood something fundamental. In Mexico, no one is untouchable. El Chapo fell. Los Zetas leaders fell. Gulf Cartel bosses fell. The government, pressured by the United States, was arresting or killing kingpins at a record pace. And Garcia Mena knew his time was running out. So he did what he'd always done. He prepared. By 2017, Gilberto Garcia Mena was one of the most wanted men in North America, even though most people had never heard his name. The DEA, FBI, and Homeland Security had been building a case against him for years. Wiretaps, informants, financial tracking, thousands of hours of investigation pointed to one conclusion. Garcia Mena wasn't just a trafficker. He was the architect of one of the largest smuggling operations in history. But catching him was nearly impossible. He never used phones for long, never stayed in one place, never trusted anyone completely. He moved between safe houses like a ghost, always one step ahead. His security was legendary. Ex-military bodyguards, armored vehicles, escape routes planned to the second. He had informants inside law enforcement feeding him intelligence. He knew when raids were coming before the agents did. The Americans tried everything. They offered million-dollar rewards. They flipped his associates. They froze his assets. They pressured the Mexican government to prioritize his capture. But Garcia Mena had spent 30 years perfecting invisibility, and he wasn't about to be caught because someone got sloppy. In 2018, the DEA made a breakthrough. A wiretap caught one of his couriers arranging a massive crystal shipment over 500 kilos, set to cross near Reynosa. The operation was too big to hide. US and Mexican authorities coordinated a joint task force. Surveillance drones, satellite tracking, undercover agents on both sides of the border. This time they thought they had him. The shipment was intercepted. The couriers were arrested. The safe house was raided. But Garcia Mena? Gone. By the time Mexican Marines kicked in the door, he'd already vanished. They found his phone smashed, his laptop destroyed, his documents burned. He'd been tipped off. Again. The ghost had slipped away. September 2018, Matamoros, Mexico. After years of hunting, after millions spent, after countless operations, Gilberto García Mena made a mistake. Not a big one, just human. He attended his daughter's birthday party, just for an hour, at a ranch outside the city, surrounded by guards. But that 1 hour was enough. A joint DEA Mexican Navy operation, months in the planning, moved in at dawn. Helicopters, armored vehicles, over 100 soldiers. They surrounded the property, cut communications, and breached the gates. His guards fired back, briefly. But this wasn't a movie. This was overwhelming force. Within minutes, it was over. Gilberto García Mena was arrested without injury, dressed in jeans and a button-down shirt, looking more like a middle-aged accountant than a cartel boss. No dramatic escape, no tunnel, no last stand. Just a man, finally caught. The photos were surreal. This was the ghost, the phantom, the man who'd evaded capture for 3 decades. He looked ordinary, balding, slightly overweight, tired. Not the monster they expected, just a man who'd built an empire on silence and calculation. He was extradited to the United States in 2019. The charges were staggering. Drug trafficking conspiracy, money laundering, racketeering, continuing criminal enterprise, each carrying life sentences. The evidence was overwhelming. Wiretaps, financial records, witness testimony from dozens of cooperating defendants who'd worked for him. But even in custody, Garcia Mena remained true to his nature. He said nothing. His lawyer negotiated quietly. Unlike El Chapo, who turned his trial into a spectacle, Garcia Mena kept his head down, stayed silent, and waited. In 2021, he pleaded guilty. The trial never happened. No dramatic testimonies, no media circus, no tell-all confessions. Just a plea deal. Life in federal prison, no parole, in exchange for cooperation that was never fully disclosed. Some say he gave up roots. Some say he gave up associates. Some say he gave up nothing and just wanted to avoid the spectacle of a trial. No one knows for sure. Because even in defeat, Gilberto García Mena kept his secrets. Today, Gilberto García Mena sits inside a high-security U.S. federal prison, likely ADX Florence or USP Coleman, serving life without parole. He's in his late 50s, invisible once again, just another inmate in a system full of them. No interviews, no documentaries, no Netflix series. The world moved on, but his legacy didn't disappear. The routes he built still exist. The tunnels are still used. The distribution networks still function. Because Garcia Mena didn't just build an organization, he built a system, and systems outlive their creators. The Gulf Cartel continues, fractured, but functional. New leaders have risen, younger, more violent, less patient. They lack Garcia Mena's discipline, his invisibility, his cold calculation. They make the same mistakes he avoided. They want fame, they want respect, they want corridos, and one by one, they fall. Because they forgot the most important lesson: the loudest monster always dies first. Gilberto García Mena's story is not one of glory. There are no heroic moments, no romantic rebellions, no Robin Hood myths. He wasn't loved by the poor or celebrated by the people. He was simply a man who understood the rules of a brutal game and played them better than almost anyone. His legacy is a warning, not a legend. Silence is survival. The narcos who loved attention, Escobar, El Chapo, the Zetas leaders, all fell. Garcia Mena lasted 3 decades by being invisible. Loyalty is economics. He didn't rule through fear alone. He understood that people work harder when they benefit. His organization functioned because it was profitable for everyone involved. Adapt or die. When wars erupted, he didn't pick sides, he navigated. When routes closed, he found new ones. When leaders fell, he kept working. Greed kills. Unlike others who built mansions and bought exotic animals, Garcia Mena lived modestly. He understood that wealth attracts attention, and attention attracts law enforcement. The system beats individuals. He didn't try to fight the government, he worked around it. He didn't challenge authority, he corrupted it. And when he couldn't corrupt it, he avoided it. But perhaps the most haunting lesson is this: he lost anyway. All the intelligence, all the caution, all the silence, it didn't matter. In the end, the machine caught up. Because in this game, no one retires. You either get arrested, get killed, or keep running until one of those happens. Garcia Mena is proof that even perfection fails eventually. With Garcia Mena locked away, the Gulf Cartel splintered further. The Metros, the Rojos, the Cyclones. Factions within factions, each fighting for control of the same territory, the same routes, the same dollars. The violence escalated. Matamoros, once relatively stable under Garcia Mena's quiet reign, became a war zone. The irony is cruel. His arrest didn't stop the drug flow, it just made it messier. Tons of powder, dope, crystal, and pot still cross the border daily. Americans still get high, Mexicans still die. The demand hasn't changed, the supply hasn't stopped, but the professionals have been replaced by amateurs. And that's the darkest truth of all. Gilberto Garcia Mena's imprisonment didn't save anyone. It just created a power vacuum that younger, more violent, less strategic criminals filled. The stuff keeps moving, but now the violence is random, chaotic, pointless. The US government declared his capture a victory. The Mexican government called it a blow to organized crime. The media moved on to the next kingpin. But in the border towns, in the streets of Matamoros, the people know the truth. The monster you know is often safer than the monsters you do not. If you visit Matamoros today, you won't find statues of Gilberto Garcia Mena. No one sings corridos about him in the bars. No murals honor his name. He's not a folk hero, not a legend, just a memory. But in the shadows, among the traffickers still running routes, the cops still taking bribes, the politicians still looking the other way, his name is whispered with something like respect. Because they remember when the game was played with rules, when violence had purpose, when the business ran like a business. They remember when the ghost was in charge. Some say he cooperated with US authorities from prison, giving up trade secrets in exchange for better conditions. Some say he refused to talk and rots in silence. Some say his family still controls portions of his old network, operating under new names, using his old methods. No one knows for sure. Because even now, even locked in a cage, Gilberto Garcia Mena keeps his secrets. And maybe that's the point. In a world where everyone wants to be famous, where criminals film their crimes for social media, where kingpins seek celebrity status, Garcia Mena's real power was always his absence. He understood that legends get hunted, but ghosts slip through the cracks. He almost slipped through forever. Some men conquer with armies, some men conquer with fear, but the most dangerous men conquer with silence and vanish before you even know they were there. Gilberto Garcia Mena didn't build a throne, he built a shadow. And in the kingdom of monsters, the shadow is always darker than the king.